Today I am reading from Maria Simma, Get Us Out of Here, the book written by Nikki Elt, who interviewed her. Maria Simma had poor souls from purgatory visit her for several decades. Today it's very interesting. We're talking about Marian apparitions. So Nikki says to her, Maria, does Jesus' mother Mary really appear to people? You've mentioned Medjugorje now on several occasions. Please tell me more about it. Oh, yes, she does appear to people, and it is today in Medjugorje, Herzegovina, that she appears daily to a group of young people. I've already been there 3 times, but I did not have to go down there to find out whether or not it was real. Soon after it started in June of 1981, I asked a poor soul if it was real, and the answer was yes. And so are San Damiano, Quibejo, Father Gobi, and other smaller cases around the world. You know, with Medjugorje, there is only one great danger, and that is if the world were to ignore it. But there are many other cases of messages from above where the poor souls have told me either careful or simply no. Well, no is easy to understand, Maria. Can you tell me of a case or two that are not real, and how do you interpret careful? I will not mention names, but I know of cases here in Europe that are entirely satanic. Right over here in Switzerland, there are 2 cases, one in German Switzerland with a relatively small following, and the other in French Switzerland with a huge following throughout the entire world. There is a very confused one in Australia, a fake in England, one in South America, and many outright evil ones in the USA. But then again, there are also real ones there. We must pray so much for all those fake cases. Careful can be for various reasons, but it means that some interference is happening or has happened around the person it concerns. So one must be extra cautious. This can be the case if the person is not cared for spiritually, or if the person chooses not to hold to a very discerning and strong spiritual director. If there are any theological mistakes, any mental, emotional, or physical loss of freedom, or an effort to bring too much attention upon the instrument itself, it is in these cases one should be very careful and leave immediately. Also, the taking or the accepting of any money should warn people that something could be way off. Another possible signal is that if the visionary, so-called visionary, is in any way neglecting his or her own family. There are many signals to look out for. And please do not forget that Satan knows the truth and will use it to lure people. When we discern or are told careful, then it is better to ignore the entire situation than to risk being misled. Satan can fake anything he chooses to, even stigmata and healings of every sort. We must pray for a lot for the many fakes in the world today, and also for those who refuse spiritual leadership, refuse testing, or total obedience to the church when it comes to these matters. Maria, if a follower of one of these fake cases comes to you, do you advise them of this fact? The souls told me that if it was to happen, that a person asks me, then I should tell them that to this or that phenomena, the souls have said no. And exactly this did happen a few months ago concerning the more widespread of these 2 Swiss cases. To be candid, it's not difficult for me to imagine who you're referring to here, Maria. But tell me, why do you think a person does such a thing? Or is it done unconsciously by them? Consciously or unconsciously, due to some weakness of theirs, probably pride, Satan makes them do it. And by how this one operates, it seems clearly evident that all they wish to do is cause division and to pull people away from Medjugorje. My exorcist friend, who I referred to earlier, has also been able to confirm this. Maria, I understand that you do not wish to mention names of living people who are misleading others in this manner, but would you be willing to mention the name of a deceased person about whom the souls told you to be careful? The poor souls said, careful, when I asked about Maria Valtorta's writings. But here it could be the things happened to her writings after she had died. Again, Satan is always lurking very nearby to mess around with things, so careful should not make people worry about Valtorta herself. Maria, has the Blessed Virgin Mary said anything through the visionaries in Medjugorje about the poor souls? Yes, she has spoken of purgatory several times there. Early on, the children gave 2 longer testimonies and a few shorter private responses about it. And then in 1986 and 1987, there was a longer message about it to the entire world, and another where the necessity for masses for the souls was briefly mentioned. And do those messages confirm what you say, Maria? Yes, they do. You mentioned before that souls tend to congregate in prayerful or holy places. Do you know if any souls have appeared in Medjugorje? Oh, yes, they have. Our Lady confirmed a few such visions for the visionaries there, but the messages that came from them were private for the relatives concerned. But I was told about one that happened in a nearby restaurant soon after Our Lady started appearing in Medjugorje. In the next larger town, where the communists and the police were, both of whom, of course, at least laughed at or at worst tried to terrorize the villagers of Medjugorje, there is still today a restaurant which only the men of the town frequent. All the tables, except for one, were around the walls, and the one in the corner was always the last to be occupied. At around lunchtime one day, the restaurant was nearly full, and some of the men were saying ugly things about both the apparitions as well as the people of Medjugorje, which is, after all, only 3 or 4 miles away. Suddenly, some of the men looked up when they heard a woman's voice reprimand them for saying such things about such holy matters. They saw her sitting at the normally empty table in the very center of the restaurant. She was about 30, attractive in appearance, and well-dressed. No one, not even the waiter, had seen her come in. There wasn't even a glass on her table. When the men heard her scold them, they quickly fell silent. The next time they looked up, there was no one at the table. No one had seen her enter or leave the place. This story spread all around town very, very quickly. Most certainly that was a soul sent by Our Lady to straighten things out a bit. Again, it is true that the souls show themselves more than usual around holy events. Earlier, you mentioned the warning of Garabandal. Could you tell me about Garabandal and its warning? And have you also been there? Yes, I've gone on pilgrimage there several times. Garabandal is a mountain village in Spain where Our Lady appeared to some children in the 1960s. Out of there comes a warning that is essentially this: a moment will come when every person on earth will see the condition of his or her soul, and many will die of shock when they see it. It's the same as happens to everyone during the death process, but then it will happen to all at the same time. From whence he shall come to judge the living and the dead. Ought we be fearful of such warnings? Only when we are very far from God and full of sin do we have reasons to fear them. If we try consistently to be with him, we have nothing to fear at all. Simply said, those who pray will be safe. And also God's mercy always comes before his judgment. A good comparison for this would be a warning on the side of the road. The fact that we see and read the sign in the road does not mean that we have already slid out of the sharp curve ahead of us and that the sign is warning us about. With a childlike trust in our loving God, we are and will always be in the safest of all hands. How else might God be warning us in these years? Oh, he's warning us with natural as well as man-made disasters, and these include earthquakes, mass starvation, and plagues, of which AIDS is not the last. No one can deny that these are happening. They are occurring with astonishing regularity, but again, what the fewest of us are prepared for is a total economic collapse. And this will bring the proud and the powerful literally to their knees. Maria, yesterday you told me that there would be a last day. Are these warnings then perhaps telling us that the last day is imminent? No, this does not need to be the case at all. I believe God will be showing himself very clearly very, very soon, because we have gotten ourselves so distant from him. But saying that the end of the world is imminent is, by my estimation, based on what the poor souls have told me, wrong. Remember now that the souls have told me that things will soon be getting better again, and nothing in that implies that the final battle or any end of the world is upon us. But it will be a huge change. One can say purification. Please, we may never forget that God's mercy is also infinite. Maria, I understand that in the early days of Fatima, the two visionary girls there asked Our Lady if they were going to heaven. She answered yes. Then they asked the same question on behalf of the little boy Francesco, then only 7 years old, and her answer was, only if he prays many rosaries. Maria, how can this be true if he was only 7? Yes, that's true. You see, it's always relative to what the person was taught, even if only 7. By this answer, we must presume that he was taught to pray far more than, say, children today. And I am certain that if you were to research that, you would find out that this had been the case. Asking that of one of today's so secularized kids would be harsh, and Our Lady is anything but harsh. In Medjugorje, Our Lady asked the children at the very beginning how and how much they were praying, and adjusted her request of them to the answer they gave her. This was her motherly and gentle hand at work. Also in Fatima, Maria, one of the girls asked Our Lady about the whereabouts of a 16-year-old girlfriend of theirs who I believe had died shortly before. Our Lady answered that she was in purgatory and would be until the end of time. How could a child of 16 have done enough to earn that? Oh, yes, that is easily possible. She might have been extremely stubborn or disobedient. She might have blocked very many graces, and that would have been enough to cause that. Some people question Medjugorje because the apparitions have gone on now more than 17 years. This book was written in 98. Do you find this to be a valid reason for concern? No, not at all. The times are so different today than they were during Lourdes, La Salette, or Fatima. These are now the times prophesied at La Salette and Fatima, but many things said there were never well publicized. Today, the children in Medjugorje do need this constant guidance, even if only as a safeguard, so that they do not fall into the world's innumerable huge temptations. Also in the messages there, Our Lady says that after these present apparitions, she will not be appearing again in our times. So again, this argument holds no water. Many things about Medjugorje are firsts, but how dare we challenge Jesus' permission for granting his most holy mother's wish to be with us in that way for a very long time? Just look at the condition of the world. We need to accept so much help if we do not wish to kill off humanity with everything else on this earth. Maria, have souls come to you who died in that horrible war down there in the former Yugoslav republics? And if they have, did they say anything about their regretting not having lived Our Lady's messages while they were still alive? Yes. 3 fallen Croatian soldiers have appeared to me, and one of them did confirm that Medjugorje is from God. But that's all he said. Has Our Lady in Medjugorje ever mentioned that war down there in the warnings to the world that have been given to the visionaries? The warnings are secret, but the visionary Vika was asked just that. She said no, that the war has not been mentioned as a part of the warnings. Then the person asking followed up with this. If this is indescribably horrid war is not part of the warnings, then how big will these warnings be? To this Vika answered, you have just answered your own question. And on the same subject, 2 other visionaries, Marija and Mirana, also commented. Marija said, this war is a cross for us Croatians and a warning for you. While Mirana said that everything we need to know about them is in the book of Revelations. Still, we must never, never worry, for all fear is only from Satan. If we try conscientiously to live with God every day, he will protect us from whatever it is that lies ahead. Praying people will be safe, but those not praying will be caught off guard and will be unprotected. It is that simple, and we must trust God and his mother, the trust of small children. Maria, it must have been dangerous to travel to Medjugorje in these last years. Yes, Satan does everything possible to make us think this, yet to this very day, it's never once been made inaccessible by that satanic war. If people feel called to go, they should not rely on the often confusing and dishonest press. They should not rely on insurance companies or statements made by their governments. They should rely on Our Lady, her angels, and the poor souls to assist them in having a grace-filled pilgrimage. Other than, of course, a place where daily Marian apparitions are said to occur, what is Medjugorje to you, and what will it become for people who go there? The Marian apparitions are occurring there, say the poor souls. They do not say that they think they might be occurring. But to your question, I predict this for those who are led to go. First of all, it is a school of prayer. And if one participates in just a little bit, it soon turns into a school of love. There, Our Lady is guiding us from a godless and loveless world into a God-filled and therefore love-filled world like we have never seen before. Maria, what is the Pope's opinion when it comes to Medjugorje? This was John Paul II. He has often spoken in favor of it over the years, but there are many others higher up in the church who wish to hide this fact from the faithful. Just recently, he told both the government as well as the church leaders of Croatia that he wishes to go to Medjugorje on his next visit there. He has also privately met with several of the visionaries. Final question. Protestants complain that Catholics give too much attention to Mary. What do you say to this? Devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary can never go too far as long as it stays balanced and does not turn into worship or adoration. And it was St. Louis de Montfort who said that true devotion to Our Lady includes being aware of and thus being active for the poor souls in purgatory. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching yet another informational Bacon Bit. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.